From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another month as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. May Day, Cinco de Mayo. May the force be with you. Got it all coming up, right?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about the Star Wars reference this weekend. Yeah. I've never quite got into
Darth
that. Darth
Vader fan that you are?
Yeah, I'm a big Darth Vader fan. More like R2-D2.
Luke Skywalker, also known as Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, good one. I like the transition. That was perfect. Boy, has he been good. I mean, I'm not comparing him to Michael Jordan, but I think that he has a lot of the athleticisms that Michael Jordan had when he was at the peak of his game. I mean, man, he elevates and he gets to the basket, slashes, and honestly, I think at this stage he is a better three-point shooter than Michael was in the early days of his career. Now, Michael became very good as the years went on, but Anthony Edwards does a lot of good things.
He does. I call him a triple E guy. He brings energy. I mean, he's explosive, and the effort is there every night. It's KG-like in the way that he's going to give the fans their money's worth, and he's fun to watch. You know, the Michael Jordan comparisons aren't just being thrown out there by the Minnesota media. I mean, I've heard it on ABC from Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick A. Perkins, and, you know, all these people that are the national broadcasters. So it's out there, but the key is they keep winning, so he gets more primetime exposure in the playoffs, and then get some rings. Michael's got six.
And he was 6-0, by the way, into the finals.
That's true. And had he not taken a break to play minor league baseball,
probably would
have had 7 or 8.
I was going to say.
And the same with Kobe. Kobe's got 5. Everybody forgets about Kobe. I think he's right up there with Michael, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there, and you can make the argument, him and LeBron and...
Or Bill Russell. What's he got? 12?
He's got like 11 of them, I think. It's kind of hard to argue that, too. But no, Anthony Edwards has done exactly what you had hoped. He has become more of a leader now. He's not just, a really good player. He's a really good player who's also a leader. I heard him kind of giving Karl Anthony Towns a little bit of grief after the last game in the first round of the playoffs against Phoenix, saying, if you stay out of foul trouble, you're great. We need you. And, maybe the truth is the kind of serum that he needs. Karl Anthony Towns knows that too, I think. It's just, for some reason, he feels like he's got to be reaching and, more physical than is necessary at times.
Yeah, and right now this is all nitpicking. I mean, when you win your opening series 4 games to rip, then you're doing pretty well.
Right.
And I would just say one other thing on Anthony Edwards. And I love the guy. He's fun to watch. But let's pump the brakes here on greatest Minnesota athlete ever and all that stuff. That'll come down to longevity.
Yeah.
He certainly could be down the road, but I don't put him up there yet with a Fran Tarkenton, a Chuck Foreman, a Kirby Puckett, a Rod Carew, somebody like that. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, the die has been cast. Now he has to fulfill it at the other end, and I agree with you. We'll see.
I think he wants it, though. I think that's the beauty of it. There's a hunger with this.
Well, and this could be fun. Playing Denver, it's a matchup that they had a year ago, and they lost 4-1, but this is a different team. They don't have Naz Reid sitting on the sidelines. They don't have Jaden McDaniels with a busted-up hand sitting on the sidelines. They don't have Rudy Gobert. I don't think has punched any of his teammates this year yet. Not that I'm aware of anyway. So, they've got a lot more going for them right now, I think, than they did a year ago, no question. And let's not forget, and again, Karl Anthony Towns was coming off an injury last year too, as we know, and same thing this year. But I think he has turned the corner a little more quickly. That 28-point effort he put in Game 4, which was a rough and tumble game against Phoenix, I think proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's back.
I think the other thing with Denver is these teams know each other. As you mentioned, there was a playoff matchup a year ago.
Yep.
Denver won it in 5 games, but Minnesota was competitive in most of those wins the Nuggets had. They had to fight to get the victories. And I think there's some acrimony here with Tim Conley. When he left, Denver to take the GM job with Minnesota, the $44 million deal. And I don't think the Nuggets were too happy about it. And his fingerprints are on the Nuggets, championship team last year. I mean, he wasn't the GM then, but point is, I think the Nuggets and Timberwolves could be your new rivalry in the West.
Is it fair to say that Conley built most of both of these teams?
To a point. I also think we got to remember Gerson Rosas. He got Chris Finch, right?
He drafted Ant.
He drafted Ant. I mean, I don't know what he did in the front office and who he did it with. But you bring in Ant and you bring in Chris Finch, and a lot of us second-guessed the Finch decision. You and I and many others panned out pretty well. And by the way, get well, Coach. It was a rough break when Mike Conley ran into you in Phoenix.
Yeah, he plowed him over. But I wasn't the choice between Anthony Edwards and Joel Embiid? Wasn't that the choice?
I think so.
Was it one of the balls?
Yeah, I think it was.
It was LaMelo Ball?
Yeah,
that's what it was.
They made the wise decision.
Yeah, no doubt. I would much rather have Anthony Edwards. Even when Ball was going off early on in his career in that first year, I was still saying I'd rather have Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
We don't need one of the Ball brothers and the father of the Balls. Maybe I'm getting the puns here all mixed up, but we don't need that here in Minnesota.
No, it couldn't work out any better so far with Anthony Edwards, and the ceiling is unlimited. It's above the clouds, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk to a guy who had some above the clouds moments in his career, particularly with the Gophers, a little bit in the NBA. We're going to talk some Timberwolves with Kevin Lynch.
Yeah, so stick around. A lot more coming up. We've also got the NFL draft, the scorching hot Twins. This is 10K Takes, your Ant ticket.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so we're always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Get away to Lakeville, Minnesota, where your family will have tons of outdoor fun. Come for the nature and stay for the thrills. Bring the bikes, swimsuits, fishing poles, and walking shoes as Lakeville boasts trails, lakes, and beaches. Plan your itinerary at visitlakeville.org today.
10,000 takes rolling along, Wally and Eric. And as promised, we're going to continue to talk Minnesota Timberwolves. And we're going to be joined now by Kevin Lynch. He is a TV analyst for the Wolves television broadcast. Kevin, hello. Question one out of the gate. Are you surprised that they swept Phoenix? I don't want to say as easily. Okay, I will say as easily as they did, particularly the first three games. Phoenix came to play for sure in game 4. But are you surprised by the dominance?
I worked some of those, some of those 3 games during the regular season. Wolves got dominated, and it just seemed like they were intimidated by the Suns. And the first game they played Phoenix back in November was a second game of a back-to-back. They played Golden State. Do you guys remember when Draymond Green strangled Gobert? Yep. And McDaniels and Klay Thompson got into that scrap? That was the night before the first Phoenix game. So they were tired and they're on the road and whatever. So you can understand that loss to a degree, but the other two, then last game of the season. So yes, I'm surprised with how this turned out, but you got to also remember, guys, that you get to these 7-game playoff series that can last 2 weeks. It's just a different dynamic than just a random game against whatever team in the regular season. So with adjustments going back and forth. And it's just crazy how completely, Phoenix dominated the Wolves during the season, those 3 games, and then it just completely flipped in the series. So I'm a bit surprised. I mean, everybody was saying to me after the Wolves lost that regular season game to end the season, oh, Wolves are done in 4. And I'm like, man, they just have not, that might be true. I mean, they looked, that was the only team besides Chicago that the Wolves did not beat all season was the Phoenix Suns. And they got, pounded 3 times. So I'm a bit surprised, yes.
Kevin, we know this is a team with a superstar in Ant, and Cat is, right there behind him, and Rudy G. But it seems to me from top to bottom that the egos are checked at the door, that everybody's on the same page. They play 90 feet. They embrace playing defense. Chris Finch might be the perfect guy to push all these buttons. I don't feel like, there's any, it's all kumbaya with this team. Everybody seems to get along. Am I right?
No, I think you're right. It's, to me, that was this is something you guys and I had talked about during the season or last season, is with Edwards rising and his stardom rising, whatever, and Gobert now on this team. I thought one of the keys to the Wolves being successful with this roster, with Edwards and Gobert and now Conley, is Karl Anthony Towns going to be okay with taking a back seat at times? He's a confident guy. He's got a sizable ego. But I was there his rookie year at Media Day when 2015, Towns went out of his way that day when he was 19 years old to say, I want to lead this team. I want to be the leader. Leadership is so key. I'm going to embrace leadership. He was 19 when he was saying those things. And he offered that up to the media that day. And I was kind of thinking about that as this season was starting, like, okay, that's going to be tested, because a part of leadership is being okay when one of your teammates gets more attention than you're getting, or gets more minutes than you're getting, or gets more shots than you're getting. And that was going to be key. And it seemed like it hasn't always been perfect for Towns, but I think this is as good as I've seen him as far as accepting the fact that other people around him, mostly Edwards, is getting attention, and he's okay with it. And that's the key. Everybody else is fine, it seems like. Edwards, he talks a lot about how he defers to his guys, and he goes out of his way to give props to some of his teammates. Gobert is a veteran. Conley, same thing. McDaniels has a personality where he doesn't really care about attention. So it seems like they're tight. So what you just said, Eric, is exactly what I'm seeing and hearing myself. And that's a good thing, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mentioned this in our first segment of the show today, I like the fact that he kind of needled, Anthony Edwards needled Karl Anthony Towns after the game the other night in that game 4 and said, you stay out of foul trouble and you're great. And I mean, Towns obviously knows this, but sometimes you got to be reminded of those things. But I like that. I think that plays into the fact that, not only is Towns growing up, but Anthony Edwards is growing up as a leader.
Yeah, and I know that, all this, and Towns and Edwards are the 2 main culprits of complaining to referees this season, and last season a little bit too. And, they actually sat down in practice sessions at the end of the season, regular season this year, and at certain times during the regular season earlier this year, where they had video clips of Towns going to the basket. He thought he was fouled. There's no whistle, and he's, come on, foul, yelling at the ref, and then it's 5-on-4 at the other end, and just showing him, or Edwards, the same thing, and not just Towns. It's Edwards and Towns that were doing it, showing them how much that hurts their team in transition defense, and just kind of the immaturity that Finch has talked about the last couple seasons, and just focusing too much on that nonsense instead of yeah, maybe the whistle, the foul was missed. Okay, but whatever. Your team needs you down at the other end. So, yeah, that's been one thing that they've really tried to focus on is being more mature and hey, you're not going to change many calls in this league, right? So
No.
let's not focus on that. And another thing is you got some emotional guys on this team. Towns is one. Jaden McDaniels has got a really short fuse, and maybe a few others. And they've been very even keel in a lot of ways, just like very even. And they've talked about this, and that is a part of, when you're on the road against a good team, Phoenix, Denver, whoever else maybe. Keep it even as much as you can, and because once you kind of lose your top, blow your top, then things go south, and then so I don't know. What they've done up to this point has been impressive, and let's enjoy this.
Yeah, for sure.
And Kevin, I'll throw the gauntlet down. I know Denver's the reigning NBA champ, and they've got probably going to be a 3-time MVP in Nikola Jokic. They're a difficult team. But I think the future is now, as George Allen once said, and I'll use Toronto as an example, the Milwaukee Bucks, and then last year the Nuggets winning their first NBA title. I think the Timberwolves are built to win it this year. Will they? I don't know, but I feel like they need to win it. And this epic Minnesota drought, by the way, for championships.
Why? Can I ask you, why'd you say they need to win it? Why?
Because you never know in a year what's going to happen. I think you have to seize the moment. Because if they go out in round 2, then how do you assess this season? Good, but certainly not great, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like typically, I'm going to try to answer your question, Eric. Typically, a lot of times what happens, and we saw this with the Chicago Bulls trying to get Detroit trying to get past Boston. Now, this is back in the day, right, with Bird and those guys and Isaiah Thomas. And sometimes it takes a few disappointments to, like, really stinging losses in deep in the playoffs, like Detroit dealt with Boston, couldn't get past Boston. Eventually, they get past them. But then Detroit started to beat up Chicago, young Michael Jordan, right? And then they eventually got past the Pistons. And we've seen some of that before. To me, a lot of times you got to have some disappointing playoff situations disappointing playoff losses deep in the playoffs to kind of build something, some toughness. That's maybe a crude way to say it, but to really, and then eventually do it. I mean, Denver got to the Western Conference Finals in the bubble, I believe, down in Florida and lost. And they've had some disappointments as well. And that's the one thing I kind of wonder with the Wolves. Have they had enough of those? 2 years ago in Memphis, the Wolves easily could have won that series when they lost it. But everybody was just happy the Wolves got into the first round. Kind of the same thing last year, but McDaniels and Reed were out and injured. And then you lose to a team that's surging, that has been through some of those difficult moments in the playoffs. And that's the one thing I just kind of wonder is have the Wolves gone through those enough disappointments to get hardened and toughened? And so I guess I agree with you to a point, but I don't think they have to do it this year. I think this can go on next year, and if it doesn't happen now, they're going to have a good year next year as well.
Kevin, appreciate the insight. We will definitely be checking in with you again as this series moves along because it looks like it's stretched it out. The schedule is really stretched out. So we'll talk again down the road.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
He is Kevin Lynch, the former Gopher, played in the NBA, and now an analyst on the Timberwolves telecast. Back with more after this timeout. Stay with us.
Let your adventure begin in Lakeville, Minnesota. We have over 90 places to grab a bite to eat, and we're close to the Mall of America, Valley Fair, and the Minnesota Zoo, plus hotel packages and great rates. Visit Lakeville. We're serious about fun all year round.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so we're always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Well, if you had the Minnesota Twins dead and buried after the first, 20 days of April and the last few days of March, surprise, surprise, as Gomer Pyle once said many a time. I know you like watching the Gomer Pyle marathon.
Yes, indeed, Sergeant Carter.
Yes. They bounced back by beating up on the Chicago White Sox and the Anaheim Ducks. And man, I'm telling you, man, the Angels are they are a train wreck in as much as the White Sox are, if you ask me. What is their deal out there?
Yeah.
You're from Southern California. What's wrong with that program?
They believe they're hexed. They do have one World Series title, but they're a lot like the Minnesota Vikings. They seem to assemble talent, but it doesn't usually lead to a whole lot. And the interesting thing about the Twins and this long winning streak is, in previous years, if you win 8-9 in a row in the AL Central, you clinch it by June 1.
Right.
But not this year. Central casting, this division that we've all banged on like a drum, much better, at least into May. Cleveland, your club, the G-Men, off to a great start. Detroit and Kansas City, improved. Minnesota's finally getting hot. Chicago is a bottom feeder. We know that. But is the AL Central for real? Are we going to get 2 playoff teams out of this usually lame horse division?
Very possible. Unless they beat up on each other, it's the only thing I could think of. I mean, certainly the Twins have feasted on Chicago. I know Cleveland played them once and swept the series. Or no, they took 2 out of 3, I think it was, or 3 out of 4.
Well, I think it was 2 games and then there was a rainout.
Yeah. You mean Cleveland and Minnesota?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because Cleveland opened up the season here.
That's right.
And they took 2 from the Twins, and then the third one was rained out. But I still think that I think the Twins and Cleveland are the best 2 teams in the division, but Kansas City obviously is vastly improved. Bobby Witt is he's more than the real deal. He was good last year. He's really good this year. Now, can he stay this hot and carry a team as much as he's been doing for the Royals? We shall see. It's all about the pitching, and that's why I think that the Twins might have a leg up on both of those teams, because Cleveland's going to have to go to battle for the rest of the season without Shane Bieber, and this Gavin Williams kid, that the other one they were depending on, he's been banged up. So I don't know. I think the Twins might be okay. Well, let's see. It's a long season.
It is.
We had them dead and buried for the first 4 weeks of the season. Now the last couple of weeks, they look like world beaters. Who knows what's going to happen?
Not bad for a team that invested very little in the offseason.
What do you mean very little?
I mean, they slashed
nothing.
Payroll. And A.J. Pierzynski, who used to play with the Twins, he's now a broadcaster,
right,
went Rip City the other day. He tore into the poll ads, and he said it's always been that way. They will not go over the hump and bring in the extra pieces necessary to take it to the next level. And you know what? He's right. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and they've been dealing, everybody has injuries, but the Twins have had significant injuries. Okay, I mentioned Bieber for Cleveland, but look at the Twins. They played the last, Carlos Correa just came back this past Monday.
Johan Duran came back this week.
Duran came back on Tuesday.
When's Royce coming?
Royce isn't coming back, they say, till June.
Wow.
And at the opening day starting lineup, Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton, and Carlos Correa were all in the lineup.
Buxton's the new Iron Man.
The new Iron Man.
Byron Ripken.
He did not get hurt in the month.
And I'm so happy he's out there playing center.
He is. All right. Takes of the day coming up. Stay with us. This is 10K Takes.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. these.
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Finding the ideal place to stay is important for business travelers. Lakeville, Minnesota is conveniently located off I-35, just south of the Twin Cities, with a variety of hotel choices. Lakeville offers convenient amenities such as shopping, walking trails, golf, and more. Our unique meeting spaces, historic downtown, live music, and over 60 dining options are sure to impress. Book your next stay in Lakeville and experience convenience, comfort, and quality. Find your perfect hotel at visitlakeville.org.
10K Takes on television as we wrap up yet another episode. Takes of the day. Are you a cranky Yankee, giddy guardian, sarcastic Sam? What is it?
Well, it sounds like Timberwolves fans, despite the fact that their squad has made it into the second round without even losing a game, they weren't too happy online. They were ranked by preply.com, going through online comments using AI, your favorite tool, to found to have had used the most profane words online. They were a top 10 team. They were 10th of all the fan bases. Oh, by the way, they were also 10th of all the fan bases using the F-bomb.
That's impressive. That's very Philly-like.
Well, ironically, Philly is number one.
Way to go, Minnesota, not so nice.
Yes. Philadelphia 76ers fans, the most profane online of all NBA fans. All right, now to my actual take of the day. My son Tony was just at a Saints game over the past week and mentioned to me, he said, hey, did you see what they're doing at Saints games? In AAA ball, you can challenge a pitch, whether you are a pitcher or a batter. And I don't know if it's one pitch per batter or one pitch per inning or whatever it is. But instead of using robotic cameras and so on to determine balls and strikes, so they're talking about that. Just have the computer decide whether you got a ball or a strike instead of umpires. They allow you as a batter to challenge one pitch per at bat, apparently. And I'm not sure on the exact rule, but it's kind of a compromise between going to the robotic umpires and no use of the technology at all. I kind of like the idea if they're going to do anything. I would prefer they do nothing at all. Humans have been doing the job for 100 and some odd years. Leave it alone is my best answer to that.
Let's check the mood meter. Oh, he's a sarcastic Sam. Throwing shade on AI. Old school.
Oh, yes, very much so.
All right. Well, my take of the day, I'm going to talk about the NFL today on CBS. It's been the gold standard for pregame and postgame shows, halftime, for 50 years now.
Yep.
In the NFL on television. Well, they had a major shakeup the other day with CBS. Out is Boomer Esiason. Out is Phil Simms. In is Matt Ryan.
Matty Ice.
Yeah, Matty Ice gets the call, and I got to tell you, which bumble brain up there in New York City at Black Rock says we got to get rid of two guys who know their stuff, part of the chemistry on the set with James Brown and Nate Burleson and Coach Cowher. Oh, we got to get rid of these guys and bring in the young guy. Well, let me think. Could it be ageism? I say it is. I think Phil Simms is excellent. And I like Boomer. He's opinionated. He does a talk show in New York City on WFAN. That's a dumb move, CBS. You didn't have to shake it up. I'm all in on Fox's show. Wow. And on that note, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. David Wells.
Says the guy wearing the hoodie.
Rocky. Paul Langfellow, Kevin Lynch, for Wally. I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.